Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 4. In this lesson, we are going to look at how to modify data in MySQL. My name is Mildred. So in this lesson, we are going to look at how to insert data or new records into a database table. We are going to look at how to update existing records and also how to delete records from a table. So we're going to start by creating or establishing a connection. We are going to use the Secular database, and so I'll start by writing use Secular, and then I'm going to try to use the staff table. So let's select all from staff. So the staff table holds 2 records of 2 staff with staff ID 1 and 2. We want to add more staff to this record. In MySQL, we use the insert statement to add records to an existing table, and we're going to do that like this. The syntax is insert into, then the table name, which is staff. So we're going to insert into table name staff, and then in a pair of parentheses we want to list the columns as a comma separated list that we want values inserted into. Now, as we go along, we are going to look at the different constraints on columns for you to know which column requires a value and columns that do not require a value. For now, we are just going to insert into certain columns, but as we go along, I'm going to show you the different constraints. I think by week 6, we're going to look at the different constraints, and then we're going to look at columns that must have a value or a default specified. So for now, we're going to try to insert values into the staff ID, the first name, the last name, the address ID, the email, the store ID, and the username columns of the staff table. So let's do that. I want to insert this new data in the staff ID column. So in this parentheses, you are listing all the columns where you want your data to go into. So first name, last name, address ID, email, store ID, username. Once you have specified the list of columns where you want to insert a new record, you write values like this, and in a pair of parentheses, you want to supply the values that you want to insert into these columns. It must be in the same order. So the first is staff ID. I want the staff ID to be 3. I want the first name, and because this is a string, the first name is a string, which means that we have to put it in quotes. So I'm going to break into a new line so you can see clearly. So I want to put, let's say, my name. So first name is a string, Mildred, comma. The next is the last name. I'm going to put my last name. I'll put comma. The next is address ID, and I'm going to put my address ID as is a number. So let's put 3. Email address, I'll put a random email, mildred@gmail.com. And the next is the store ID. I'm going to put a store ID of either 1 or 2, so I'll say 1, and then a username, and let's say my username is still Mildred. So we're just inserting new records here without thinking about what the constraints for each column is. In real life, when we create our table, we're going to define constraints, and we're going to put values that do not violate those constraints, or it's going to throw an error. So now we have the syntax: insert into table name, in a pair of parentheses, a list of columns, values, and then in a pair of parentheses, the values for those columns that are listed in the same order. And when I run this, I should have this inserted with a success message. And if I comment this out and I use a new select all from staff, I'm going to get a new row added here with all the values specified. So this is how we insert a new record or a new row into a database table. There's one problem with inserting records like this. I only inserted a single row of record. Let's say I want to insert multiple rows. I don't want to write this query several times. When I get to the values part, I can have a comma separated list of parentheses like this, and in the parentheses add new values. So let's say I want a new staff with the ID of 4. Let's say the name of the new staff is Mark, and the last name of Mark is, let's say, Doe. We have let me break this into a new line. We have the address ID of Mark Doe, let's say 6. We have the email address of Mark, let's say it's mark@mark.com. Then we also have the store ID, we'll say number 2, and then the username of Mark, let's give the username as Mark. Now recall that I just inserted this value of ID of 3 in the table recently, and I have it here in the table. Trying to reinsert this will bring an error, or will throw an error, and then nothing is going to be inserted. It's going to halt the process. And so let's try this. We are going to get an error saying you have an error in the syntax. So let's see what the syntax is. There is no semicolon. Let's run this and get the real error we want. So we have duplicate entry 3 for staff primary key. So that is the error. The best practice for you to do is to do something like insert ignore. So instead of getting an error that halts the process, you want to only insert the new rows that are not duplicate rows, and you just want it to say do not insert duplicate, do not show an error, do not fail, just insert the ones that are not in existence on the table and ignore the ones that are already in existence. So this time when I run this query, there will be no error. It is going to succeed. When I go back here to say select all from staff, I should get the 4th staff added to the list. So this is all about inserting into a database table. Let's say there's an error in what I've inserted. Mark store ID is 1 and not 2, and I want to update that. Also, the address ID of Mark is 5 and not 6, and I want to update that. In MySQL, we update records using the update statement written like this. Update table name, set column names equal to value. So I'm updating staff. I'm going to set address ID, which is the column name, equal to 5. I also want to set store ID equal to 1. And here's the important part, where. You must use a where clause. If not, you are going to update all the rows of the table. Update staff, set address ID equal to 5, store ID equal to 1, where staff ID. So we want to select a column that uniquely identifies the row we want to change. I want to change this max row, and the staff ID is equal to 4. Let's go over the syntax of the update statement again. You are going to update table name, in this case staff. You are going to use set the name of the column equal to the value you want to assign to the column. And as a comma separated list, you are going to list all of the columns and their values like this. Then you use a where statement to specify a unique condition for the row that you want to update. If you skip out the where clause, you are going to update this address ID and store ID for all of the records on the table. And so when I click to run, if all is well and I select all from staff, I should get that row updated. So Mark now has an address ID of 5 and now has a store ID of 1 and not 2. For the update statements, there are 2 modifiers we can also specify, and we are going to look at this when we look at transactions later on. But when you update statements, we can do something like updates, and we specify low priority here, and you see this so we have low priority here, and what it means is that you want it to delay any updates until there is no connection reading from the table. That's what low priority means. If you want it just like the insert statement, to not update anything that creates a duplicate, you put update ignore, just like we did with the insert. So these are the 2 modifiers you can use with the update statement. Low priority means that you don't want to update when anything is reading or any connection is reading from that particular table. You want to wait until there's no more read, and then you want this to be updated. You want to use update ignore if updating creates duplicates. You don't want it to stop the process. You want it to update other columns that are not duplicates or other rows that are not duplicates in the case of multiple, and you do not want an error message that halts the process. The third thing we're going to look at is how to delete records from a table. Now let's clean up this table and remove the records that we just specified on the table. We want to remove the Mildred and Mark from this table. Mildred has a staff ID of 3 and Mark has a staff ID of 4. So we're going to remove these 2. So the syntax for delete is delete from table name. So delete from table name, you must use a where clause or you are going to wipe out the entire rows, where staff ID is equal to 3. When I run this, if all is well and I do select, Mildred will be deleted from the table. Now we have Mark. We want to delete Mark. We're going to say delete from staff, where the staff ID, which is a column that uniquely identifies the row we want to delete is equal to 4, and this deletes that. And when I comment this out and run the select statement, we have it back to how it was in the original. So this is where we end this lesson. In summary, we looked at how to modify data on a database table. We looked at how to insert a new record, how to update existing records, and how to delete records from a table. In the next lesson, we're going to look at transactions in MySQL.